Welcome to this particular session. This was a session that it's in some ways it's probably so central, I think, to the future of girls and women, because we're talking about something that we have acknowledged in terms of the world is as important as the Industrial Revolution. I mean, the whole idea of the use of technology, as we now refer to the internet and to the web and to coding and so on, is become, it's the dominant feature of how the world has moved and is moving. And if girls and women aren't a part of it, a central part of its planning and its frameworks, then I think we are going to find, as alongside other revolutions, that we will regret it. But we also need to work out how we can become central and what are the kind of obstacles and issues that we need to deal with. This particular session, we're joined by Nicola Mendelsohn. She joined Facebook in June 2013 as the Vice President of Facebook Europe, Middle East and Africa, which is an incredible achievement, I just say, in itself. And previously she was the Executive Chairman at the advertising agency Karma Rama. And I remember you saying at the time that it was a kind of double-edged sword for a second, because you had to give up a company that you were so proud of and really had made your own, and then but take on this hugely new and powerful, important task. So we'll talk about why you did that. She's the co-chair of the Creative Industries Council, which is a joint forum between government and creative industries. She's done many things before this, and she was the first woman president of the IPA. And she's the director of the Women's Prize for Fiction. She's a director of the Women's Prize for Fiction. Then next to me, I've got Mariam Jami, who's a Senegalese-born British businesswoman, and her company, Spot On Global Solutions, helps international tech companies selling enterprise software solutions in Africa, Middle East and Asia. And she was named one of the Forbes 20 Youngest Power Women in Africa in 2012 and recently nominated as the Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum in Davos. She co-founded Cheetah Accelerator, which is a mentoring and business accelerator, and she also founded Africa Gathering, which she'll talk about. And she may indeed talk about her own journey to this place, which was absolutely astonishing. And she's regularly contributing to The Guardian, Africa Report, CNN, and other platforms. On my left is Sarah Brown. She's the co-founder of the A World at School initiative, which is there to mobilise and support efforts to achieve education and learning for every child by the end of 2015. And she's president of the international children's charity Their World. She's also co-founder of the Maternity Mortality Campaign and global patron of the White Ribbon Alliance for Safe Motherhood. She does many other things as well, but as she would say to me, yes, and blah, 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 blah. Let's just get on with the point. Because she's a woman who likes doing things. And on my far left is Claire Sutcliffe. She's co-founder and CEO of Code Club, which is a nationwide network of free after-school coding clubs for children aged 9 to 11 in the UK. And there are many arms and legs to this initiative now, which she's going to tell us about. She was named New Entrepreneur of the Year in the Net Awards in 2013, and she was one of the Red Women of the Year in 2014, and Code Club was listed in the Observer's New Radicals 2014. So an illustrious lineup. I also want to say at the end of this session, any of you who want to repair to the Yellow Room, which is right down in the basement, there's going to be mentoring for people who are interested in developing skills, new skills or brushing up on skills. And if you've already signed up, that's where you're going. And if you haven't signed up yet, I think there's a waiting list, but we'll try to cram everybody in. Is that?
Yeah, and I think Mariam and Claire have agreed to be mentors now, so we know we can get slots with them.
Okay, so there's new mentors, therefore, there we are. So I've asked each of the panellists to talk about the things that they think are of concern and excitement to them. And I'm going to start with you, Nicola, if you just want to sort of say, in a way, what you feel the best new initiatives are and what you're fighting to achieve.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's absolutely fantastic to be here and wonderful to see all of you today. What am I thinking about? What matters to me at the moment? I think it's really around the issue of getting girls into the STEM subjects. Who here has done STEM subjects? Hands up. Okay, so they all sat here. I feel like you should have sat here. Okay, not good enough, I say, not good enough. Why is it not good enough? My own daughter, Gabby, is 18, and she was doing her GCSEs, and we went in to see, I was telling Sarah this the other day, I went in to see the head teacher a couple of years ago, which is always scary, isn't it, when you go, everybody remembers those moments, you never want to go into the head teacher's office. And we went in together, and we were told that Gabby wasn't going to be doing physics, because she'd messed around, quite frankly, and hadn't done very well. And my daughter, being the sort of girl that she is, turned around and she said, oh, I am going to do physics. And the school said, no, you're not going to do physics. You're not very good at it. You're good at the arts. You stick with the arts. And she went, no, I'm going to do physics. Teachers look at you to get that solidarity moment. You've got that moment to go, do you back the head teacher or do you back your daughter? We backed Gabby, and she got an A star. Go Gabby. But it was a really interesting moment, because in that moment it sort of crystallised for me that there's a real cultural issue around girls doing STEM subjects, girls doing physics, girls doing maths. It's not cool to do those subjects. It's not what culture expects. And so it's not a surprise to talk to a room even of this size and see that the majority of the people actually don't feel that they're doing the STEM subjects. And I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake because even if I look at my own company, Facebook, which, as you know, is being spearheaded by the likes of Sheryl Sandberg, we don't have enough women that are on the engineering side. We are crying out for more female engineers and coders, and we can't get them, just can't get them. There was a piece of research done recently by Enders that looked at the dropout rates for girls in STEM subjects at every point in the chain. Dropouts at GCSEs, even when they do better than boys, drop out at A-levels, drop out when they get onto the engineering and the STEM courses, and then dropouts again about not taking jobs in this area. And that's a massive issue for me, and it's a massive issue for Facebook, and something that we're looking to address. So my wish, my aim, my desire is that maybe when we're together in 5 years' time, we ask the same question. Who here does STEM? Maybe everybody will put their hands up. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But in your particular business, since you have so much influence and power, what are you putting in place now to make sure that this discrepancy between girls and boys, men and women, is actually going to shift?
So we're doing a number of things, actually locally, because what we're looking to do is to try to use the scale that we have to partner with people that are already working in these different initiatives. So it's things like connecting women in technology. It's things like, I was in Kenya last week, I was in Nairobi, we were talking about this on Friday, that I went to visit Akira Chicks, which is a fantastic organisation that you were part of founding, which provides coding for girls and women for free, gives them scholarships for a year, and it gives opportunities and avenues to people that didn't have those opportunities to do things before. So we haven't got a silver bullet. There isn't a silver bullet, because as I talked about, it goes across the whole chain of education. And really you've got to be talking to young girls as young as 11, 12, who don't, you know, because I think at the ages of 8 and 9, if you ask a room full of girls if they think they can do maths, they all go, yeah, we're great. And by the time you get to 11, 12, they're already going, I'm not very good at it, it's not cool, I'm not sure. And so there's lots of different things that we need to do all over, and we haven't got all the answers, but it is something that we are investing more and more time in.
Okay, well, we'll come back to why it's important, actually, later. Mariam, do you want to just talk about you are an absolutely driving force behind this, I know you are. Do you want to talk about why and what you're trying to do?
I'll try. I think I've
got
got
a presentation,
but but I'm going to just start with the... thanks, Jude. I'm always happy to be here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here. And I think my story is very different, but we're trying to do something about it now. And I didn't go to school. One of the things I'm really interested in is I didn't go to school until I was 16 years old. So STEM subject, I didn't have no idea what STEM subject were at all. But I started learning mathematics when I was in a foyer in France. I'm sure some of you know my story, but my mother sold me as a prostitute in France when I was 15 years old. So I started getting education when I was 16. So I lived in a village for 15 years, didn't have any education whatsoever, and then started learning mathematics when I was in a foyer, really, in France. So since then, learning mathematics and figures really interested me. And then I had a chance to come to Europe and really get myself together with the help of many people and mentors across the world. And today I'm giving back to Senegal, where I come from, but not just Senegal, but in many countries across Senegal. So I try really to support many young girls across Africa to get into the ladder like anybody else. So one of the things I always go by is that what Kofi Annan quote is that When women are fully involved, they benefit, can be seen immediately. Family are healthier, they are better fed, their income, savings, and their investment goes up. And I see this because when I was growing up, I didn't have anybody to support me, anybody to help me. And so coming to the UK, being here, I can see now why it's very important to give back to those young girls across Kibera, like Nicola said, and across Senegal and Kinshasa. It's very, very important. And the reason why I want to make sure that they are into the STEM subject, because we are in shortage in Africa of young girls trying to get into these organizations where they can use their talents. I'm not very good with this. So why you can see I'm not very good. Why I think STEM is important, because right now we need skills in Africa. We really need skills. Every CEO I speak to across Africa tells Mariam, we don't have the skills necessary. But they don't even talk about girls. They don't even talk about young girls. Because we have many women in the diaspora here, for example, in Europe, who are doing other subjects, nursing, they're lawyers, but they're not looking into technology. So it's only few of us in Africa who are pushing the innovation and technology agenda. And I think we need more people. And we really have a massive handicap. And today, for example, if you look into the African, where we are today, 29%, of research accounts are only just like for Africa. It's so small. 1%, we don't even have good researchers across Africa. But we have so many scientists who are just sitting there doing nothing. The government, African policymakers don't even push that. They don't even push the STEM. I was 10 years ago, I used to write about STEM subjects. People used to say to me, you are laughing. Africa don't need this at the moment. They need more food. There's more poverty than you banging on your STEM subjects. But now it's so important because we have big organizations like Facebook, Google, they go into Africa, but they can't find the skills they need. Even internship. I sit on an advisory board for Microsoft, and one of the things we're now pushing is to have internships, giving internship to young women and so young guys, especially the 16 and 18 years old girls. Mm-hmm. What we're doing, what I'm trying to do right now, and I really need all of you, your help and collaboration. I believe that we should now really collaborate and help one another. And one of the things I like was, Sarah Brown is one of my heroes for a very long time, because I knew that when I was growing up, if we had people like Sarah Brown in the village I was growing up, probably I would have education then. But in that time we had Oxfam, Camfed, all these NGOs helping us, but we didn't have somebody focused on trying to drive this agenda, which is now 30 million girls can't go to school. That's why I'm following very closely what Sarah is doing, which is very important. So that's why we have 104 tech hubs across Africa. They're creative spaces where people go and start their businesses. We have 63 women tech networks. These women tech networks are women, young girls sitting down, coding. They can code from Java to PHP. They really know what they're doing. They understand the subject and the languages we're talking about. They are really, and they're doing it without books. Sometimes they go online and they need some support to do that. If I see today Jamila from Kibera to come now to the Akira Chicks, and she opened one of the biggest e-commerce sites in agriculture in Nairobi. It just took the iHub to see who she was and for her to be where she is today. If it's Binta in Senegal, it's the same. Amazing young girls. All they need is someone to give them support, and that's it. They will make it. So we have opened one in Kinshasa recently, and Kinshasa, Congo. So I've got young girls who have HIV/AIDS, and now I'm teaching how to use how to code and get their life together. And I'm hoping to open Guinea and Kinshasa by the end of December. This is very important. We even have an academy now in Nairobi specifically for STEM subjects. I'm going to be banging and lobbying across every government in Africa until they hear what we have to say. This is very important for Africa. So this is why, the reason why is because Africa is the IT market. We have 8.5 billion to 12.4 billion by 2015. The IT market in Africa is so big, it's unbelievable. But we have also the youngest continent, the youngest people in the continent. So I really need us to work together, to collaborate. Otherwise, we're going to have more Mariam Jams out there who didn't have any education, have to suffer and have to not get education until 16 years old is too late. They're not going to end up like me, becoming a CEO in London running a tech company. It's not going to happen. So that's why those 31 million girls need to be supported. That's why we need to sign the petition we have and make sure we're banging on every single door until we get those girls educated like myself. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, I think that I've known you for quite a long time, and I know just how formidable you are. And you know, if anyone's going to get this done, you are going to get it done. But you're saying two things, aren't you? That on the one hand, the populations across the African continent are under-resourced in terms of education. We know that's true, and not just there, obviously. And therefore the ability to be fully part of a world where STEM is driving enterprise and thinking, that's a huge deficit. But additionally, you're saying that if the girls, like Nicola is saying, if the girls aren't part of it, then Kofi Annan's point, which is that it's girls and women who will make safe and fiscally healthy communities, that's not going to happen at all.
It's not going to happen. And the thing is not just African problem, it's a UK problem as well. I spend my time going to prisons in the UK and going to places where young girls, we don't even talk to them about technology and innovation at all. So I think that, you know, there is a cross collaboration here between the African continent, where young girls are so hungry to code, but they don't even have a Java book, and you have some young girls here who can do it, but they don't have any courage and any strength, somebody to help them do it. So that's why we need the collaboration now this year to make sure that all of us as women, we can make sure those girls enter this tech. It's not scary, because, you know, if I can do it, you know, anybody else can do it. But we need to make sure that we're banging on doors and, you know, supporting, you know, the tangible and pragmatic campaign Sarah is doing to make sure we get there.
Okay, just out of interest, I mean, very few people put their hands up, I mean, relatively speaking, in saying they were doing STEM subjects, but the rest of you are all here. I don't really know what question to ask you, except, first of all, I'm glad that you're here. And secondly, I suppose the question is, are you interested in STEM subjects? Is it because you're sort of thinking, well, I would like to get involved somehow? I mean, hands up who's not like studying STEM, but thinks, well, this should affect my life in some way. A small number. So the rest of you are just curious.
It's for my daughter. I'm interested for my daughter.
Interested for your daughter. Okay. Hands up who it's for somebody else. A few. Okay. Very interesting why people have gathered around this subject. So I'm going to come to Sarah, because you've just been bigged up big time, and quite rightly so. But
I suspect I'm not the only person who works in tech here.
Working in tech.
Probably the biggest group, isn't it?
Okay. Who works in tech?
Yes.
No, not the biggest group. No. It's a massive cross-section of reasons for being here, but all obviously good. All good. Sarah, could you just talk a little bit about what's driving your curiosity about this and your determination?
Well, I'll draw on what both Nicola and Marianne have said so far. I mean, Nicola's identified the great gap in girls in STEM. I did do science A-levels, and I did go and do a science degree, and when I came out, I couldn't find a job in being able to use it, and was directed towards marketing and communications. I'm not sorry that I did. It allows me to be a very noisy person about the things I care about. But I'm glad that it's changed the other way around, because it is easier, I think, for us to go and find and encourage girls to come into tech and to learn when there are jobs than for it to be the other way around. So I'm optimistic about what's achievable and what can be done. And Marianne touches on something, which is how you actually reach a population that are hungry to learn, hungry to have that opportunity, and particularly for girls to have the same equality of opportunity that boys and men have. And again, I'm optimistic, because I think there are things that we can do where you have a population of young people who really want to get going with something. Then you know if you can create it, people will engage and join in. So the two things that I'd like to highlight that I'm involved in. The World at School platform that we've built is so that not just for the NGO that I have their one, but that all the different organisations, youth organisations, big NGOs from UNICEF and SAVE, right through to small groups operating in Kinshasa and Kaipira can be involved, where we're all able to use our networks and our mobilisation powers to be able to put out the call to say that every child should go to school and learn and to have that opportunity. The United Nations did make a promise that it would deliver basic education for every child by the end of this year, and that is several million off track. 58 million children don't get a single day at school. 31 million of those are girls, and the chances for those girls once they are in school is that they're not going to, for the most part, stay in school for as many years as boys, and still face these huge barriers around child marriage, around enforced labour, and also for boys and girls being affected by conflict and coming under attack around the world. So there are huge challenges for us to face, but the country leaders and the heads of the UN agencies do sit on the means to solve it. We don't need to invent anything. There's no rocket science involved. There's no cure that needs to be discovered. We know how to train teachers. We know how to build classrooms. We know how to explore with technology how we can make that learning reach wider. So, and the costs of it are also not astronomical. It's again, cheaper than finding a cure for something. To educate a child in Africa costs what, Marianne? Maybe £200 a year or something? Not even that. So in global terms, these things are achievable. But we need that call to action. So A World at School has been mobilising the Up for School petition. We've reached just over 3 million sign-ups to it. We have organisations who are committing and pledging to go and get more signatures that would add up to maybe another 15 million more. But I still think we can do more than that. I think there isn't anyone in the world really, apart from a few members of Boko Haram and the Taliban, who don't think that children should have the chance to go to school. So it's a very easy thing to sign and support. But more significantly than that, we know what to do with something like that. If you can take a body of people who say, we're backing this and we're wanting this. So much as we all have our own brands and our own individual campaigns and our own companies, collectively we can really, really put our voices together and put a very big shout out to the political leadership around the world to make that change and to keep that promise. So that's the mobilisation effort. And the gap for skills, I chair a group called the Global Business Coalition for Education that numbers over 100 big multinational businesses that are all exploring what they can do to drive more children to school. Obviously it's not just a job for government. We want partnerships with the private sector and with civil society and non-profit groups so that collectively we deliver it. And the Business Coalition this week for International Women's Day has launched its Global Education Task Force. And the companies that are involved in it, ranging from Dangote Group to Standard Chartered to Microsoft and Intel and all the other members of the coalition will have an engagement and are involved in it. Will look to identify over the next few months, they're going to work very quickly, exactly what the gaps are for girls being able to be in education, at what points are they dropping out, and to identify some of the technology solutions that can actually come in and actually provide that. And within a matter of months, taking that to the United Nations in September and looking for a round of funding and looking for the political support for that. So I think all of this can move quickly, and our voices coming in behind it will actually keep driving that change through faster and faster.
Thank you, sir. When you talked about the fact that the UN had an aim to get every child in school,
sure.
and it didn't happen in the time.
Not yet happened.
Not yet happened. Okay, but what was the reason? Was it lack of political will, or was it just a bigger task than they expected, or did they go off the boil, or what happened?
Or all of the above. The promise was made as one of the Millennium Development Goals that every single child would have a basic education. And it's a very simple promise, which was just the access to education for everyone, and just at primary level. So, of course, the demand, as we come into the next round of promises from the United Nations countries, is to ask for more education and quality of education. But why it hasn't happened, I think it's a set of goals. The global health goals have really moved very well, and there's this gap with the health goal, but a lot of it's linked to gender equality, a lot of it's linked to how we're coping in conflict. Half of those out of school children are out of school because they're affected by war or they're caught up in the aftermath of war, and the numbers go backwards when you have Syrian children, a million Syrian children who are at school, who now of course are situated in countries around and displaced. So there's the challenges there. We've not yet in the system put in education as part of the frontline humanitarian response. There's been a conventional wisdom that says food, water, sanitation and healthcare are really important, education can wait. And on the surface that makes a lot of sense. You're not going to survive very long without something to eat and without clean water. But at the same time, the price is very high. when you're actually a child in a refugee camp, when you've had something to eat and you've had your vaccination, and there's nothing then to do, that you know, the stresses and the strains on your mental health from that point on are going to make the challenges for the rest of your life that much greater. And given that it's not one of the most costly things, and given that we're smart people and can figure it out together, actually people are starting to realise that it might make more sense to actually make plans for that as you've got populations being displaced, and not think that it's a secondary issue to come to later.
And I'm sure most people know this, but when people talk about refugee camp, the word camp is a sort of a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? Because they often end up being bigger than cities, and they last for years. So you're not
Children will spend their whole childhoods now displaced in some sort of temporary accommodation.
Yeah.
15 years, yeah.
15 years
Yeah.
without education, just with the basic needs.
For me, I was in a village for 15 years, and we have the MSF, Oxfam, and all these comfort organization coming. For 15 years, a child life actually stopped. So my life started at 16 years old, and in a village, it's very tough there when you are refugees, and then you are sexually exploited, and there's so many things happening. But these are real stuff happening right now. You know, it's a real stuff happening to young girls like me. I'm 40 years old now, so 40 years nothing has done yet. So you know, so we need to ask really what's happening.
But I'm optimistic that there is change coming. If we take the population of Syrian refugees, people have been very overwhelmed by that. It happened very quickly. Countries like Lebanon and Jordan, Turkey and Iraq have been very overwhelmed by, you know, new immigrant populations landing on them. But actually there's some fantastic solutions being proposed around double shift schools where already starting in Lebanon, the existing schools for Lebanese children are now splitting into double shifts. So the Lebanese children will come in the morning with their teachers, they'll start slightly earlier in the day, they'll finish their schooling, and then later in the day, Syrian children come in with their own Syrian teachers, who of course are refugees too, are able to learn to their curriculum. No one's had to reinvent anything or make it very complicated. Who knows why it wasn't thought of before, but it's turning out to be a really good idea.
Okay, so there's a kind of the big issue about education in general across the world and the access to it. But going back to the sort of central story, which is, but what about girls and STEM? You know, those things together. What about girls and women taking part in this technological revolution across the world? How do we get them involved? So this, Claire, over to you. Actually, the picture that was up, is this yes, the picture that was up of the little girls. Shouldn't you just put them up? Because actually, if you're wondering who they are, that's all of us, apparently. Not that one, but there's a picture.
The holding slide at the beginning, I think.
Anyway, we'll come back to it. Yeah, so that's all of us when we were little.
Sarah and I were having a competition about who had the longer collar. I won. Sarah won.
And that little bit older, back in the fashion.
So, I mean, obviously we will all have our kind of stories about what we felt about those subjects. But Claire, you're really actively saying, right, how do we get girls to think it's cool, to think it's necessary, and to be allowed? Could you just talk about your work and what you're doing?
Yeah, so hello, I'm Claire. I'm one of the co-founders from Code Club. Code Club's mission is to give every child the chance to learn how to make with code, so they can express their creativity and learn how to build their ideas and then share them with the world. It's a worldwide network of after-school coding clubs. We write learning materials that teach children how to make with code, so they'll make websites and animations and games, that kind of thing. And then we give those materials to volunteers who go to their local primary school or community centre or library or some such like safe public place, and they will use our materials to run a code club for an hour every single week. We started Code Club in 2012, and there are 2,300 clubs running in the UK at the moment, and 500 clubs running in 70 countries around the world, which is exciting and tiring. The exciting thing about it is that 40% of the attendees of Code Club are girls. And at first we thought, oh, that's a pretty happy accident. And then we realized that one of the ways that we talk about Code Club is very gender neutral and welcoming for everybody. And the age range that we target Code Club at is 9 to 11. I can't remember who was saying, like, I think it was you, Nicola, wasn't it? It's like, yeah, if you ask a 9-year-old if they're interested in making computer games, a 9-year-old girl, then yes, they really, really are interested in it, and they absolutely love Code Club. And I think that getting them early is really important, and then keeping their interest as they carry on through life is essential. so obviously we're doing all of that stuff, but there are some concerns that I have about the future for the girls even that do get to go to Code Club. And there are two main ones really. First of all is the effect of parents' opinion on girls and boys actually, and not just parents but siblings and grandparents and the general public. I have heard a frightening number of times little girls being told that engineering is not for girls, and that actually really chokes me up because how upsetting is that? How awful. And maybe they're not doing it explicitly, parents I mean, but maybe by offering one child an option and not the other. What they're saying is, this isn't for you and it's not appropriate that you go and learn this. So that's one of my massive concerns, and I think there's a huge job to do around educating the entire population about how appropriate it is for girls and how actually essential it is for them to learn to program and learn to control the machines that they use all the time. And the second problem is about the word pipeline. There is no silver bullet. Code Club is doing its best to try and encourage as many girls into STEM subjects as possible by making it fun to learn to control a computer. But what happens when they drop out at these various different stages is really sad. But when they even get to a career, maybe they get all the way through, maybe they're working at an amazing technology company, and the atmosphere and the way they're treated is not cool. Like, to the point where that's why so many women leave their technology careers once they're there, and that's really scary. I mean, it hasn't happened to me, but I'm lucky, and I know that a lot of my colleagues and contemporaries, they've been sort of bullied out of their positions really, where they feel so uncomfortable about their roles that they feel they can't stay and they end up leaving. And I think that we can encourage girls as much as we like, but we've got to make it welcoming by the time they get there. Sorry for the sad news.
There was an article today, or actually we were doing the papers at 9:30 this morning, and I can't remember. We were doing the papers this morning, and there's a big pull-out about Silicon Valley in the Observer, and the front cover is Silicon Valley bad for women? And it's a really interesting and detailed account of what you just said, really, which is that the culture of this vast powerhouse is very male, hugely male dominated, and this is young men. We're not talking about the old brigade, and that the culture is sexist, misogynist, and if you have that as the sort of the key power driver of an industry, that whole culture of believing it belongs to men and almost like a men's club, despite some tremendous men, of course, who don't behave like that way or think that way, then is that really almost like the central point of an industry which is saying to girls, we're not making things for you, we're not really talking to you, and when you're in it, some of the imagery of you is stuff which just shows that you're not really important.
Absolutely. And imagine being a girl and doing a bit of research about the industry that you want to go into, and you find that out. Like, you just turn around and walk away, wouldn't you? You'd do something else. Why would you aim to go and try and be in an industry that is so unwelcoming as it is?
And have you talked to key employers and key leaders in the industry and got them to think about that in any depth?
I haven't, no. No, I wish I could. I mean, I don't know if I can really... I don't know if I really have the expertise to be able to convince top employers to change the way that the whole industry works, but I don't know. No, I don't know if I can answer that.
I'm going back to you, Nicola, because you said, look, there's entry, and then there's drop out and drop out and drop out and drop out. And there'll be lots of reasons for that. But can you just talk a little bit about just, who's doing the pulling from the industry? Because it seems to be all the women who are saying women should be in tech, let's pull them in. But if the men inadvertently even are kind of going, well, we don't notice and we don't need them, and that's not going to work.
Okay, so I just want to start off by saying the culture at Facebook is not like that.
It's fantastic.
And for the women that are working in tech in the room, we want you. So come and see me after, open to discuss jobs at Facebook. It's something that we take incredibly seriously, and I mean it, by the way, just so you know, tell your daughter. It's something we take.
Also one of the few of those companies that has a woman in a C-level job.
Yeah.
And it's something we're very conscious of. I mean, we only... For all the work that Cheryl does, we still only have 23% of the senior positions that are filled by women. but we are not satisfied about it. We published our numbers to show where women are in the workforce, and it's just not good enough. And it's the single biggest issue that all the leaders across the business are tasked with, which is how we can encourage diversity across all its different metrics into the business. So we care about this passionately, and it's something that we're trying to do a lot of work on. So it's the men and the women at Facebook that are trying to kind of welcome the women in. And I think we have as a company some of the most female-friendly policies possible. But what we do know is that the majority of the people still at Facebook are men, 63% are men, and the majority of people within our engineering side are men as well, which is why we need to do other things. And going back to the 9, 10, 11-year-olds, we've started to do some individual programs in different offices where we work with different schools, just to also make people aware of what the jobs are. Because one of the challenges that we have, because the industry is so new, and we go back to the parent issue, there's a different aspect with parents whereby most parents don't actually know what the jobs are that you can do with STEM subjects. And so, and especially in different communities where it might not feel that it's a sensible job or a good job or a proper job, we need to change those opinions as well. So there's actually an education piece for the older generation, which I count myself, that's because actually we're not aware of the things and the opportunities. And what's crazy about this is that people in STEM subjects are paid more, graduates of STEM subjects are paid more than people not in STEM subjects. So from an economic perspective, if you want our daughters to do well, then the obvious place that they should be going to is into the STEM subjects and then continuing on those careers. But that's not without the issues, because people do drop out at different points. You often hear about the fact that, and again for your daughter, it's pretty common on the different science courses that there'll be 1 or 2 girls that are studying on the courses, and that halfway through the course there'll be 1. And that's a difficult environment, and we need to think more about what we can do to make it more friendly for people, more welcoming for people when they are on those courses. And that is a challenge that I think lots of different people need to come. I don't think it's just business, I think it's education, I think it's the family support, and it's other girls encouraging other girls and teachers as well along the way. So it's a complicated problem, but one that we're trying to do the bit that we can in this area as well.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions and comments now, because you know, you're here because you want to find out or contribute yourself. So can I just have a quick show of hands who'd like to ask a question? And one, right? No, more than one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's take 3 questions in one go, and then we'll answer them. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll stand. Hi, my name's Jess, and I work for a company called Decoded. So we do a similar thing to Code Club, but we teach professionals how to code. But my specific job is to go around the country and talk to young women, specifically the ages of 15 to 16, about this, actually slightly older, about STEM subjects and getting them into, you know, it's not just boys in their bedrooms, you know, coding away Matrix style. It's cool, it's girls like me, it's girls like you, it's everyone. But what I find is that the pressure on them socially from their parents is overwhelming, negatively and positively. And also the fact that it's quite a lot of female pressure. I feel like sometimes we're kind of pinning our hopes on that generation of women to drive it forward. But when they're still thinking about hair and makeup and what boys think of them, what would you say we need to do to kind of cut through the social pressures that they feel and the kind of female pressures that we might be putting on them, in terms of...
Okay, so hold on to that question. Can I take this next chap along here? Thank you.
Thanks. Mine actually builds on that. So I actually run a Silicon Valley tech company, a very small one. So I'm very interested to hear what more can be done. You know, like there's definitely a problem. Everyone agrees. I'd love to hear just bullet points about, you know, what could be improved and how.
Do you have some thought yourself?
I have some. Yeah, definitely. Shall I share now?
Share.
Okay. Access to skills is hard. Like, it's hard to find employees full stop in Silicon Valley and in London. So learning where to find these girls who can code, right? Like where? It's very hard to do that, I think. So education for these people running these companies, but also help us to understand what the culture is. The culture is a really big thing, right? Like, how do we help us to understand what needs to be changed in the culture? A framework or a guide, like, you know what I mean? That's what I'm asking for.
Okay, great, thank you. And there's a lady at the front row there. Wait for the microphone, here it comes.
It is very much related. It's not really a question, except I used to work as a TA in a school, and so had contact with primary through to secondary girls. And we had contact with the University of Hertfordshire, who were doing some work on the psychology of trying to get girls to study science subjects. And they found it was really difficult to get schools to send girls along to the open day that they were holding. And I just wondered if you knew anything more about that kind of research that is being done. It was part of the Institute of Robotics, I think, at that university. And that's a little while ago now, and it just seems as though we haven't got very far. And I wondered if you knew about that.
So there's a whole... basically what you're saying is that even the individual girl might think, I want to do this. She'll have a range of voices all around her. And then that's if she even gets to hear about what's possible in the first place, because the school might not even think it's relevant because she's a girl. I'm going to start with you, Claire. Like, how do we keep on acknowledging that legislation itself doesn't solve everything. The culture has to change. So how would you put in place ideas about changing the culture that make girls feel that how they look and what boys think about them is the primary objective in life?
That's a tricky one, thanks.
Okay, do you want me to
start?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite massive and wide-ranging, isn't it?
Okay, Sarah.
I'm quite strong. I'm obviously coming from a different point of view. I have 2 boys who are 8 and 11, and they started a code club with their friends in the village using Claire's model. And when they started, they had 14 boys come. And I was quite struck by the fact that they couldn't find, that no girls automatically elected to come in themselves. So we put on the boys the challenge of finding, everyone had to bring a girl. This produced massive amounts of stress and became very complicated. So in the end, we agreed with them that this was so hard for one person to pick one girl to come, obviously too difficult for a small boy. So they worked out how they got there were 12 boys that they had to find 12 girls together. And 12 girls together came. Anyway, once we dug back and found out the problem is we'd set the code club at a time that clashed with the dance group up at the village hall. So we moved the code club. Now, I don't think it's 50-50 with girls, but it is about a third girls. But it took having a conversation, but just to go back to all the points that you'd raised, Jess, the conversations you have directly with 15 and 16-year-olds and the impact that family has, I think going to boys and challenging them to do something proactively, I think even though I'm using an example of younger children, but challenging them to think of something and to come up with the thoughts that you have, but also understanding from girls what it is, the other things that they want to do. If girls can explain what else they want in their culture, I think there's a conversation to be had that boys will listen to and men will listen to. I think that it's the same thing. You're saying, tell us what to do. I really hope that the Global Business Coalition for Education's report, as we start to look into some of these subjects, we can actually draw on the expertise, the thoughts, the experiences that people have and be able to share that through. And it goes back to your point of what the academic research is actually really, really understanding those movements. So I think if we can start with gathering together a lot more anecdotal evidence and people's experiences, I'm sure there's no shortage of academics who would absolutely jump on that rich information and look to find more specific solutions.
Do you think it's also in thinking about dance, for example?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, working out what language to use to attract girls and women, working out what, don't do it for women at like 6 o'clock when they're picking up the kids from childcare, why they're still doing that all by themselves, that's another question. But the issue of, say, just dance, there's wonderful examples of choreographers and video artists using everything to do with coding to make work alongside dance. But I'd be surprised if the dance class thinks about combining with STEM in order to show girls actually the results of what can happen, not just the idea of sort of sitting coding. So I think there's also a problem with people, lack of imagination about what could excite girls. I don't know what you think, Lara.
Yeah, what we did in Senegal, we used the agriculture sector. Because some of the women were not financially literate. So we said if we use agriculture, how they can weigh the seeds and all that, it will help them understand more. So the family is starting to leave let the girls come to the hub in Senegal. So then that build build a e-commerce site for the bissap, so our traditional bissap, which is very popular in Senegal. So they start making some fruit with that, some vegetables, and putting on a website. And then the government of Senegal started to understand that actually we can have an e-commerce site. And so now we have many girls into the agriculture sector coming to the tech hub in Dakar, for example. And then that led us to push the policies with Macky Sall, our president, to start now understanding that actually we need to encourage young girls to get into STEM subject. Every country, I think, is different. But Kinshasa is more into the fashion industry. Now we're mixing fashion and tech. Senegal is more into agriculture because that's what that's what we use there. But every country we choose a subject matter that will excite the government, especially the African government don't understand the word STEM, even if you decode it for them and explain it properly. It's like it's a big jargon for them. So you need to make sure that you make them kind of at a lower level. But now they're starting to understand. It's the first time we have Macky Sall incorporating the STEM subject in his policies. Yeah.
But you're really saying the same thing, aren't you? Which is that once you can say to girls and women, well, the result of doing this is actually that
Exactly.
you want,
Yeah.
then working backwards from that.
It's fantastic, really.
I think also role models is important. So the fact that you go into schools and talk to 15-year-olds, everyone could do that. You don't have to be Sheryl Sandberg or Sarah Brown or Mariam to go into, to wait for them to come in. The fact that they meet someone that works in these subjects will change somebody's life forever, because they won't have met probably anybody else that works in those ways. And I had that growing up, just in a different world. I ended up in advertising before I came to Facebook. But where I grew up in Manchester with all my families and friends, I didn't know a single person that did advertising. It was alien. And the first time I met someone, it was like, wow, you can get paid to do a job like this. And it was just someone just being kind enough to give me half an hour of their time to tell me a little bit about it. I think we sometimes underestimate the power of anybody going in that works in these subjects, going into a school, going into young men and women, because we're talking a lot about women here, but actually we need more young men as well in these subjects as well, because there are so many jobs that we're trying to fill and will continue to need to fill as well. So just think about the impact that each of you can make as well, for those of you that put your hands up at the beginning, and for the curious amongst you as well.
I totally agree with Nicola. In Senegal, it took me 2 hours to create a tech hub. 2 hours. Because I just sat in the hotel and I said, I need some tech girls in here. In 3 hours, they gave me a phone call and we created tech hubs. Now we have 200 girls. And sometimes, again, it's like us women in this industry.
Who's got 2 hours?
Being able to give and collaborate and have show compassion into this industry, because it's very hard it's very difficult. But you need compassion and kindness is quite important in this industry, because otherwise we're not going to get there.
So the nature of the invitation and the desire to have, the active desire to have girls. Right, there's a lady there who'd like to, and somebody there, and somebody there. Right, so there's 5 questions, getting better now. Right, so there, thank you.
Me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Nicola. I was an engineer, and I have a daughter who's almost 8, so I'm interested in the kind of code club. I just wondered how much work has been done to lobby parents, because from my perspective, we're in a culture of after-school club fever. Like, I know kids that are doing 7, 8, 9 after-school clubs, weekends, athletics, piano, 1,000,001 different clubs, and I think I don't know how much of that is really the kids, and I think more of it is the parents driving kids to try these things. And I know I'd love to set up a kids club in my daughter's school, but there'd be few attendance from girls because the parents don't get it. So I just wonder how much work is being done to really lobby parents to understand how important this issue is.
Okay, fine. Could you just pass the microphone back to that young woman behind you? Yes. You?
Hi.
Stand up.
Yes, so I do all the STEM subjects at school, and I'm doing a GCSE in computing, but at the same time, my school is not seeing it as a priority. There are 10 girls doing this subject, 5 of which thought they were doing it an ICT GCSE and going to learn how to do Word. And we still have not got our system set up and everything. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not just about giving the information, saying, yes, we're going to let you do a GCSE. It's also about making sure the school sees it as a priority and that we need this. I can't do my GCSE if I cannot run my software. And that is a priority for me.
Okay, so there's a commitment issue as well. There's somebody here on the front row. Oh, okay, yes, right.
I just wanted to add something as her daughter. I'm a mom who knows nothing about STEM because when I grew up, these weren't priorities. So question is also, how do we help the mothers like me to support our children when we ourselves do not have the words or the information or the understanding of STEM and technology to both go to the school and badger the school, but also to, enforce it and to promote it for them?
Okay, so mothers and daughters and teachers all together feeling as if STEM subjects can be after-school subjects appropriately and good equipment for the girls. Yeah, it's all about commitment, this, isn't it, really? Sarah, education and commitment.
Yeah, I'm not an authority on the current government, but I do know that there has been quite a concerted effort from the current Department of Education to try and put and enable more coding and more tech to go in through the curriculum, not just for girls, also for boys. The fact that that's not reaching every school, I suspect, links to resources as well as the sort of motivating issues. So I think there is a big opportunity with the general election coming up to put that pressure on all parties. I mean, you hear ministers from the current government talking about coding and technology, so there's certainly the political will is there, and I think and that certainly exists across all the political parties, but actually finding ways to actually look at what's happening and going to it. I think there's never such a good opportunity as when there's an election coming up to get politicians to hear it. And then your next step, of course, is how that actually filters through and comes into practice. So you're actually finding the resources in your classroom and teachers who are willing to do it. And again, going through the teaching unions and things. I mean, I think every parent who's got an interest should just sit and write a letter to a local MP and to the NUT.
Okay,
Can I just
yes,
can I add on to the first of all, amazing that you're here together. Amazing as a mum not knowing anything about this that you're supporting your daughter. But put yourself in the shoes probably of the governors, the other teachers. They don't know it either. It's so new, so much of this, that one of the biggest challenges that this is not easy for the education system either to push. So as much as you can be hungry and learn, as much as you can be, I would be noisy. That's Sarah's point here, is be noisy. Yeah. And don't feel that because you don't know it, you don't have a voice. You absolutely do have a voice, and you should just get noisy about it. And all the facts that we were giving you at the beginning about why this is good for future careers and employment, etc. Good name, Nicola, by the way. Just be noisy about it, and it's a vote thing. This is a really, really important issue. This is an issue not just about your daughter, but the future of the country.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of what we want to be going forward.
Noisy. Claire, after school clubs and getting things started and getting parents to encourage.
We should give the current government their due. They have changed the curriculum from being focused on ICT to having a very strong core theme of computing. Unfortunately, the teachers that have to teach it don't have the skills to be able to teach children. So that was a minor oversight, but but they have also tried to help with that as well. So I should say that Code Club has received funding from the Cabinet Office, and they've from this civil society, the Minister for Civil Society, because we use volunteers to teach this in schools. So I should say thank you very much to for them for that support. And it's an interesting one really, because I think that Code Club is, whilst it's great for practicing, it's a bit of a sticking plaster of a solution over the fact that teachers don't have, in general, the skill to be able to teach this to kids. If what we're saying is that it should be taught to every child, which I think we're all agreeing we are. And so Code Club's trying to do a little bit of that as well by training primary school teachers in the same way that we run Code Clubs. We train primary school teachers to be able to teach their kids. And one of the things that we teach them is how exciting this is going to be for them. This isn't just another thing that they have to teach. It shouldn't just be a pain in their ass. This should be a really exciting thing, and they can pass that excitement on to their children. We try and make sure that they leave the training sessions feeling a bit more confident, so that when they're standing up explaining what a loop is and what an algorithm is, they can sound confident about this and explain that it's going to really change their future. I think the other thing that we need to do, and I think Nicola was talking about role models before, is teachers are the people that children spend most of their time with during the day, and it's really important that those teachers know what the future could hold, because if they don't, how are the children going to know? There's a bit of a lack of careers resources, but even in primary school it should just be a general part of the teacher's knowledge, and they don't know that yet. Yeah. And that's not their fault, that's just because as Nicola says, it's so new. One of the things that we'd really like to do at Code Club is send kids around talking to people who have really exciting careers that use their STEM education, so digital artists and musicians and people who create dance installations and all kinds of exciting things, and talk to them about how did you get here, and do you earn lots of money, and is it exciting, and what do you do every day? And then try and get that content out there for use by teachers, and so parents can see it. And I mean, that's just something that Code Club is trying to do. It'll be a drop in the ocean, but we've got to start somewhere, I think.
Yeah, one of the things we do at Africa Garden is to decode the code, to actually make it very simple for people, because sometimes as techies and people working in the tech industry, we tend to use jargons that alienate people and make them go crazy. They don't understand what we're talking about. So we try to make sure the STEM subjects are decoded by subjects, especially in Africa. It works I did find that working very well when you decode it for the African government, and also to the girls, to the young, to the parents. Why does your daughter need to go into science, into tech, and all that, and mathematics? And they do sometimes understand what we're talking about. So I think sometimes it's our responsibility also as techies to decode the language for the audience and for the people we're trying to serve.
I think it's, when you stood up and said, well, you said I was an engineer, but aren't you an engineer?
My education, but not my job.
Not your job, okay. Well, you might be. I think it's exciting that you are. I'm going to call you an engineer anyway. But the thing is, if you've got an idea that you could start up a club, could you do that? Because I just think that all of us have got to have a go if we can. Because you'd be surprised. And I think if you personally went round on a few doors to parents and said, "Go and give it a go," they probably would. I think so much of this is personal.
You can do it.
Yeah. So much of it is about personal mobilising. So much of it is, and like not waiting until somebody else solves it. They won't solve it. There's somebody here. You've done that, okay. So it was just, there's somebody on the front row there, and then behind you, yes. On this side, yes. Lady on the front with the blue t-shirt. Yes, hand up. And then pass it behind you again.
Hello,
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name's Sakti. I had a question about STEM industries and businesses. Kind of following what you were saying. I wonder if there's a bit of a gap around who's systematically negotiating with those businesses around making them more welcoming for women. Because I was thinking of resources like, Will.i.am actually funds women to go into maths, young women to go into maths. And I just wondered if we needed to be doing that a bit more and campaigning, really, for those industries to become more welcoming to women.
Okay, and could you pass the microphone back to this lady there? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mel Varley. There's a recent OECD report, literally came out about a week ago, which was tests across 67 countries on the difference between boys and girls in performance in science, maths, and reading. The UK is in the bottom 5. The gap in the UK is 13% between boys and girls. The average gap across the 67 countries is 1%. It's the opposite for reading. Girls in the UK completely overperform against boys. So this is not a global phenomenon. There is a particular problem in the UK that is performing at the same level as Colombia and Puerto Rico. It's really a mold-breaking report, and it's worth using it for any conversations you're having with businesses or with education centres, because there's no difference in a lot of Asian countries who are then going to have a real economic advantage in the next 10 years.
Oh, okay, those two questions, how our relationship is. Can I just take this one person over here, and then I'll take you, and I'm going to take 5. That's very generous, but it's because I get you all in before we have to break. So that lady over there, and then the 2 more. Oh, no, sorry, I've got 1 there and 1 there. Okay.
Hi, thanks for the talk. It's been really fascinating. I'm just wondering from a personal perspective, I currently work in the charity sector. I've really enjoyed it, but I'm thinking about a career change. I was never encouraged in any STEM subjects when I was younger, but I'm interested in coding, and I just wondered if you had any advice for people who are interested in finding out more about coding and seeing if it's something that might be a good career option. Just because when I've kind of trying to do a bit of internet research, there are so many options, and often actually what you end up finding are courses that are asking you to pay thousands of pounds and you don't even really know whether they're any good.
Well, there is a mentoring session immediately following this, where perhaps that
can go there, we can help you.
So people can come and talk to you about that specifically. There's a lady there. Could you put your hand up higher so we can see? Thank you. And there's a microphone at the back there as well. When that finishes. Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Samira. I currently work in branding, but before that I did actually work with Apple. which is amazing. I have a question though. When I was leaving Apple and looking for my next career, I looked into Facebook and Twitter and looked into the tech companies, and I believe that the jargon was, for me, was too much to read, possibly. And it goes back to your point of simplifying and maybe help yourself, sir, with opening up the options to women. I found that it was overwhelming and it demanded a lot of criteria. So maybe in terms of, is there anything I might have looked in a different location or a different website, or do you guys have any advice of where to look for those potential jobs? I'm quite happy now, but just in the future.
You're happy now? Okay, but you might not be in the future. Okay, somebody there.
Don't wish her that.
Yeah. Speed metric, yeah?
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a civil servant, and I know absolutely nothing about IT, which is very sadly the case for almost all civil servants.
Wow.
How does a large organisation upskill its staff whenever we're horribly outgunned and we can't really afford to wait for the next generation? We talked about teachers and parents, but what about professionals who don't work in IT?
Okay, right. I'm just
going
to do two more down here. So with you first, and then you. Right, and then that's the end of the questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tori Chilcott, and I run a tech business. And I didn't start in technology. In fact, I failed all my STEM subjects at school. I got into technology because of the creative aspect of it, of what you can deliver creatively. And we go and spend a lot of time talking to young women about the creative aspect. And once you start with the creative aspect and the vision of what they can do, actually the process becomes accessible. We've just launched a project called Jargonese, How to Speak Jargonese, and that will be coming out in the next few weeks, which is all about tech jargonese, as part of that. So,
okay, in a way, that's a bit of an answer to your question, isn't it? Can you pass that microphone that way? Thank you.
Tori's is one of the mentors in the session later, so you can grab her attention.
Okay, so that's, yes, final question.
Hiya, I work in the arts. I'm specifically a fundraiser, and the reason why I wanted to come here is because I'm looking for that next subject that I want to fundraise for and be passionate about, and I am really passionate, obviously, about women, and I want to know what institutions or organisations are fundraising for women to get women in this sector. And yeah, a bit of information about that.
Very good. All right, now, don't try to answer all six, but which are the things that occurred to you, Nicola, as you were listening to those questions?
Okay, a couple of quick points. One was Facebook only brought engineering to the UK about a year ago, so we probably didn't even have any jobs. So you probably couldn't even find any jobs that we were advertising if you were looking for it in this country. And there are a wealth of different jobs. We put them on Facebook jobs page, so it's as simple as that. That's where they are. It's pretty simple. We try and keep our job specs just a page, just to make it really simple. To the question on the civil service and other places to go and learn, I'll sing Decoded. I love your work, and I'm very, very inspired by Catherine and all the work that you've done. If you want to learn to code in a day, go to Decoded. That kind of picks up a couple of different questions.
Okay, so that means that you, personally, need to set up a project in the civil service. No, I'm serious. I'm absolutely serious. Do not leave this festival without having an aim and a goal and a game-changing moment. This is yours, right? Change the nature of the civil service. You can do this. Get together with Catherine over there, sort it out. Okay?
I'll answer the lady for the Will.i.am. You are, he did a great job at the World Economic Forum. So he's we at the same class, and you are right. We need more voices like that. So we do behind the scenes. We use the World Economic Forum as a platform to talk about this. And yes, he's doing an amazing job right now on recycling. I think what are we saying is you can use any subject, design, for example. You can use any subject to get into the same subjects. And I'm so happy that she's talking about the jargon now. But you are right. We need more campaigners. We need more people. Looking into this and making it easy for you. But the OECD report, you're absolutely right. And that's why we always talk about tech is not for the elites anymore. If you go to where I go on the ground, Kinshasa to Madagascar, amazing people working and decoding and developing applications. Barbara in Kampala, for example, she's now developing an app on family planning issues. And you go to Burkina Faso, people are developing weather applications. And these are real facts right now on the ground. So I think we need, again, to collaborate and work together and see cross sectors, what Africa is doing, what Asia is doing, what the UK should be doing, and working together, because Africa and Asia will definitely lead the way if you're not careful.
Sarah, any points that you want to pick up on?
Not to add, I mean, Facebook and any of the other big tech companies' job pages are where it is, and that information is there. And Decoded and Code Academy, and there are a number of organisations, but they're new and they're growing, so you just have to kind of keep looking, and more keeps developing and becoming available.
Claire?
Yeah, and I'd add like Makers Academy to that as well. It's a really interesting one. It's quite long, but I think quite thorough from what I've seen. And there's like a lot of, sorry, who asked that question? Where am I aiming my face at?
Just keep talking.
Just keep talking, okay. And then there's stuff online like Code Academy, which is free, Treehouse, which is not, but goes down some various different interesting paths. Fundraising for women-specific stuff and just general women-specific groups. There's a group called Tech Savvy Mums, and I think they're actually looking for somebody to help them with fundraising at the moment. I think I saw a tweet about that the other day. There's an amazing lady called Dr. Sue Black, who did a lot of work on like saving Bletchley Park, which is an amazing place that you should go to, with the National Computing Museum in it. And I think they're looking for help. There's some really interesting groups called Women Who Code and Ruby Girls, and there's a bunch of other groups that do kind of sort of safe places for women to like learn to code together. So they'll sort of set themselves a project and then they'll work on it together. So if anyone's interested in those.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Bletchley Park, we had one of the key coders of Bletchley Park. It wasn't just Alan Turin that did code breaking. I mean, there was lots and lots of women in Bletchley Park who did all that. So it isn't actually a new thing. And who was the woman that helped invent the computer? Amy Shawcross. So the trouble is, again, you know, the history suggests to women that this is a new thing for them, and that's also something we need to do something about. This has been a short session. Well, it's an hour, but it's gone so quickly. There's so much to talk about. It is a new territory, but again, if women aren't going to be left behind and girls aren't going to be left behind, we need everybody in the room who's turned up to be interested to work out what they're going to do about it personally. Don't come back in a year having done nothing, will you? Promise me. But can I thank this group of people on the platform, because they have been doing a lot.